Hey everybody, welcome to Root Beer Reviews. I'm OmniDog, your host. This is part 2 for Scary Books for Spooktober. Okay, whatever. Um, Root Beer, still frost top. I'm digging it. So we're going to go on. This will be the second and last one where we talk about good books for October. Not necessarily scary, but disturbing, creepy. Yeah, they can be scary. Let's talk about a manga. I know I'm not a big manga reader, but and it takes a little getting used to reading from front to back, and the panels are different too. But this book's disturbing as heck. You gotta get it. It's unbelievably creepy and disturbing. That's Uzumaki by Junji Ito. And wow, this thing it's about, it sounds like a simple premise. It's about a town that's infected by spirals, but it's not as simple as that. The spirals manifest themselves in different forms, and the town is kind of cursed. Even the crematorium, which they use to burn the deceased, the clouds come up in spirals. Um, it's hard to explain. The spirals, as I said, manifest themselves, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but they manifest themselves in all kinds of different ways. And it slowly is driving this town in Japan mad because it's where the central protagonist is just getting worn down. She has to deal. It all seems to center around her classmates, her boyfriend, her parents, and it is just a wonderfully done book. And probably the only reason I haven't read it before is because I'm not a big manga reader. But this book is teaching me that there are some great manga books out there. So I highly recommend Uzumaki for Spooktober. Genuinely creepy. And we can't talk about scary books without talking about the EC collections. Now, this is an old one. This was printed by, I think, Gemstone back in the mid 2000s. They're still available. They're not expensive. I think Dark Horse is putting them out with Gemstone. Um, this is colored. It does have uh, modern coloring in it, but that didn't bother me. Otherwise, they'd be black and white. And every one of these, this set the standard back in the 50s for scary books. So much so that there were um, congressional hearings about it, and the comic book code got created because of it. And Bill Gaines was famous for his goofy testimony. He was the publisher of Mad. Uh, this these are landmark books. There's also, let's see, Vault of Horror, shock suspense stories, crime suspense stories, and weird science are what I have. This is Tales from the Crypt. Um, every every one of these is written by a famous artist. Sorry, drawn by a famous artist, written by a famous writer, and they all have twist endings that are a lot of times brutal. So I highly recommend you go out and search for these. The next book, this format is out of print, but it's still available in paperback. This is yoink, Midnight Nation by J. Michael Straczynski. And what a wonderful book with art by, wait for it, because he's a famous artist, and of course I'm blanking on his name, Gary Frank. Yeah, this is the real deal about a guy who loses his soul, then sets out by foot with an accomplice to get it back in New York City from the devil himself. He sort of lives between the living and dead. And what he encounters in this year-long trek is really good, really interesting. I can't say enough about this book. This is one of my favorite books of all time. The art is beautiful and the writing is crisp, and this requires, of course, suspension of disbelief. But like all good spooky stories, it does. But once you give yourself into it, this story rocks and rocks along nicely. It has got wonderful characters that are really well done, well thought out, and well drawn out. Besides being well drawn, they're well drawn out, and it doesn't seem like a year to read the book, even though it's a year-long journey. Um, this book's the real deal. It's still available in paperback. I highly recommend this book. One of the best books that I've read. I need to reread it because I read it a year ago, and it's time. This book is old. It's from the 2000s, I think. Um, but my memory is such that I read so many books that I end up forgetting some. And so this definitely deserves a reread from me. Midnight Nation. I highly recommend you go out and get it. Now, this next book was out of print for a long time, and I'm going to tell you that's a good thing. It's back in print, and if you want to, I'm having trouble getting this back in. Come on, Midnight Nation. If you want to be creeped out, if you want to be disturbed, this book is haunted. My house is now haunted because I own this book. Anybody that knows me knows I'm talking about Pim and Francie, the haunted book. If you buy a book for Spooktober, let it be this book because it will haunt your house, flatten your tires, uh, give your dog the runs. I don't know what. It is just, and it's not really even a story. It's by Al Columbia, who's a reclusive, odd guy. It is some little stories are in it. They don't really go anywhere, but it involves these little kids drawn in sort of the 1930s fashion, and it is full of disturbing imagery. You look at it, the pictures at first, they seem innocent, and then you go in and they are disturbing. This is the most disturbing book I own. Um, James Dayrit and I often comment that the book is haunted. He won't even buy it. He won't have it in his house. And I'm not even sure why I have it in my house. But, and there's lots of sketches and things in it. It's kind of just a collection of his work. There's all kinds of sketches, unfinished pieces, um, but I don't know, man. I get creeped out just looking at it. I got it when it was back out of print, but you can get it on Amazon now. If you want to be freaked out, Pim and Francie is the book for you. Okay, let's move along now to how about Hexed? Hexed is a good book put out by Boom Studios. It deals with an occult thief and the hijinks she gets into. Very colorful book, really fun. I really like Hexed because I love the occult. And of course, I love a strong female protagonist who's a thief. The art is fun and colorful, and it's very well written. Who is it written by? I don't think it's written by an author that I'm really familiar with. Michael Allen Nelson, art by Emma Rios. Okay, I know her art. Um, so this is a great book, Hexed, and it also has a follow-up, but unfortunately, I mean, I could recommend it, but some of it's out of print and hard to find. That's The Harlot and the Thief. Some of these are hard to find, so I don't really want to recommend them because I don't want you to go out and get frustrated trying to find it. Boom needs to do a better job of keeping these in print, but Hexed is good, a good story about an occult thief. Let's see, where are we going next? How about, this book's not scary, but it is very creative. Five Ghosts by Frank Barbieri. I met that guy twice. Super nice guy. And it's a more of an Indiana Jones adventure story where, due to an accident, Fabian Gray gets possessed by 5 different ghosts. Let me go to where I have written down what those ghosts are. Let's see. I know there's like a sorcerer. Let's see. A samurai, a vampire, a detective, an archer, and a wizard. And he gets possessed, and it's, as I say, it's an Indiana Jones style book. I can't say enough about 5 Ghosts. I read it in floppies. Then I got this really nice hardcover. There's another hardcover coming out in the near future. But I can't say enough about this. It is definitely dealing with some occult mysteries where he's an Indiana Jones style adventurer and he gets himself out of jams by calling on these 5 ghosts that possess his body. I dig it. I dig it to the max, and I think you will too. Let me show you a little bit more so you can get a taste for the art. So, 5 Ghosts, put out by Image. Highly recommend it. Let's see where we go next. Let's go to a really creepy book by Image. Severed by Scott Snyder. Let me read you the back. 1916, a man haunts the roads, a man with razor-sharp teeth and a hunger for flesh. When 12-year-old Jack Guerin runs away from home to find his father, a wayward minstrel who he hasn't seen since birth. Oh, his father, a wayward minstrel who he hasn't seen since birth. Good job, Jess. He'll discover how quickly the American dream can become a nightmare. This sets the standard. This and Wytches. I don't have my copy of Wytches, also by Scott Snyder. Wytches is really great. That is about witches, and it's genuinely creepy and frightening. I highly recommend Wytches. And Severed is a little gory, but it's also really well done and it's good and creepy and disturbing and scary. I really like. Scott Snyder has a real knack for creepy stuff, and so I highly recommend Severed. Give you another couple shots of the interior. So, Severed is a book, and Wytches by Scott Snyder. Definitely on your recommended reading list. You will like Severed if you like horror books. This is a horror, I have trouble with the word horror of a book. You will like this book. And you will love Wytches. Scott Snyder also writes, this is still in plastic, but I read it in floppies, American Vampire, which is illustrated by Raphael Albuquerque, so it's great. It deals with, what's his name, Skinner Sweet, as starts in the 1800s, but comes all the way up to the modern day as an American vampire. Great book. I really enjoy it. I read the whole thing in floppies, and now I've got it in hardcovers. I know it's still sealed. Doesn't mean I haven't read it. I read it in floppies. But it's great. It's a great twist on a vampire story. I really dug it a lot. And you will too. There's like 8 volumes, and they're all worth reading. And we will finish on Ghosted. Ghosted is a great book put out by Image, written by Josh Williamson. And the best way I can describe it is the Rat Pack meets ghost hunters. It's about a guy and his adventures searching out ghosts. And it is really good. It's just a rollicking pack of fun. I can easily read this again and be happy. I think it would lend itself great to like an HBO show. He's a ghost investigator, and there's all kinds of crazy occult stuff that goes on that he witnesses. And I highly recommend Ghosted. It is simply one of the most fun comic books you can read. It is got a snappy dialogue. It's got really sharp art. And this is one of the better books for Spooktober you can get. And that is all 4 volumes of Ghosted. Just a really well thought out, really well designed, really well done book. Um, I loved it a lot. Um, Actually, let's not finish there. I got 2 more I can talk about. This is by Greg Ruth. It's called The Lost Boy. It's kind of under the radar, but I really enjoyed it. Let me read you the back as a way of telling you what it's going on. After Nate moves into his new house, he discovers an old tape recorder in his bedroom and is suddenly thrust into a dark mystery about a boy who went missing many years ago. Now, as strange creatures begin to track Nate, he must partner with Tabitha, a local sleuth and also kid, to find out what they want with him. But time is running out because a powerful force is gathering strength in the woods at the edge of town. So they're looking for this lost boy based on his cassette tape recordings. It's in black and white. I like the art. The art was okay, but it is really well done. It's just a very fun mystery, occult, supernatural book that has to do with where this lost boy went and how these two can avoid getting lost themselves. So I dug this book a lot, and I highly recommend it. It's under the radar. It's by Graphics, the company Graphics. I'm sure you can find it on IST or Amazon, but I highly recommend Lost Boy by Greg Ruth. It is a really good mystery, really good supernatural mystery is how I would describe it. Um, and the last book is one of Greg Rucka's really good books. Now, this is the collection of it called Total Whiteout, but the book is Whiteout. You can't find this anymore, the hardcover collection, but you can still get it in trade paperback. And Whiteout is also in black and white, but it deals with I forget where it's located, someplace way up north where it's constantly snowing, frozen tundra. Maybe it's the Arctic. I don't know. I forget. Read it a long time ago. But there's a murder, and all of a sudden, and the female constable is faced with a choice: stay and solve the murder, or bail because there's a whiteout blizzard coming, and with that blizzard comes supernatural stuff in the middle of the blizzard. This was made into an okay movie starring Kate Beckinsale, whom I love, so I watched it. But the female constable is up against a number of things besides the things that go boo at night in this book. It's a very good supernatural, another mystery, but it's genuinely kind of scary because you don't know what you're dealing with, and I always like the unseen scary things. So with that, we will close Spooktober 2017. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you saw a book in there that you want to get. I'm sure I left out some things. There's probably half a dozen books still in my collection that I could have mentioned, like Sandman. But I think I did a pretty good job of introducing you to some new books that you might enjoy. All books are definitely OmniDog approved, and I think you get a kick out of all of them. So thanks for watching. Have a good Spooktober 2017, and we'll catch you on the next tape from OmniDog's Vault. Thank you. There's the button. Off.